and welcome to Los Fumar Takes. This is our 284th take live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. One of my favorite guests has returned right in time for the PCA trade show, and the timing could not be better to celebrate this man and his team's great achievements over the last few years and the creation of his brand. So we're going to get into all of that here in just a few moments. But before we introduce our guests of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate this week will be announcing their latest and greatest from the latest Freestyle Live Pack. The event pack, sometimes called mystery packs, offer a unique pre-launch experience for consumers who wish to deeply engage in each of Drew Estate's newest product releases. The exclusive packs introduced during the Freestyle Live Edition broadcast back in January had an MSRP of about $40, but they're actually worth a whole lot more. They had 3 mystery premium cigars without brand identification, a sleek Freestyle Live high-quality torch lighter, a cigar cutter, and a Freestyle Live leather keychain. So in addition to these premium items, each event pack comes with a QR code where each person can enter in to win some amazing prizes, everything from luxury custom pool tables to laptops to Subculture Studios ashtrays. Unbelievable stuff from Drew Estate as always. So, but the unveil is going to come this week, so stay tuned on the 14th. Drew Estate Facebook page. You want to tune in their live Freestyle Live, so you can find out what the newest, latest, and greatest release from Drew Estate is going to be. So that's this week on the 14th, March 14th. You definitely want to tune in and find out what this new cigar is going to be called, all about, and the new brand identification. All great things coming from Drew Estate. And welcome, everybody. This is our 284th take. Tonight's audio is always sponsored by Gran Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure to download, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, including iHeartRadio. Download, subscribe, and review. All audio broadcasts are brought to you by Gran Habano Cigars. Tonight's guest is sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Yes, it's Mr. Glen Case of Kristoff Cigars. Glen, how you doing tonight?
Brother, I'm doing great, Bear. Thanks for having me. This is always a pleasure. And congratulations. 284th show?
Yeah.
That's insane, my friend.
That's
awesome.
Crazy. It's nuts. It's crazy. And this is your 3rd appearance on the show. I'm so excited to have you back. I remember the first time I had you on. I'll confess I was a little bit nervous. But the fact that I'd given you Cigar of the Year kind of made that nervousness go away. So I was like, he can't be too upset with me.
So thank you so much. That was truly an honor. And thank you so much for that. It's great being on your show again. And thanks for having me. It's certainly a privilege and an honor to speak with you again. And thanks for your support. I appreciate you, brother.
Oh, pleasure is mine, Glenn. Thank you so much for the opportunity as well. So, let's get into it. I see that you're smoking something already. What did you light up today?
So I'm lighting up the Tres Compadres.
Awesome.
Right. So I think I told you the story before, but if I haven't, I'll share it with your viewers again. But this is a very special blend for me. So about 2.5 years ago, I lost my best friend of 42 years suddenly. And his name was Chuck Finch. And 4 months later, I lost my mentor and my friend who taught me everything about tobacco processing and blending and manufacturing. He passed away suddenly. And we always called ourselves the 3 Amigos. Unfortunately, Amigos was trademarked, so I called it Tres Compadres. But so this is in honor of Chuck Finch and Rolando Villamil, who ran our factory. And it's a beautiful, puro Nicaraguan blend, creamy. It's not a typical Nicaraguan blend. You think of big pepper and spice. This is very smooth, very creamy, very nutty, and it's just it's fantastic. And again, Chuck's birthday was yesterday, so I'm smoking that in honor of him.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, Glenn. Yeah, I do remember the story, of course. Honoring your friends with a tremendous cigar. That's fantastic. the honoring is fantastic. Obviously, losing them. So again, my condolences to you.
Thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that.
how long has he? So how long has he been gone? Has it been 2 years now?
2.5 years. Yeah, 2.5 years.
Wow.
And so this band is very special. So we've got my initials and Chuck's initials, Rolando's initials, and then our nicknames on the bottom of the band.
Nice.
And when you take off the band, there's an homage to them on the backside printed. And there's a QR code on the box talker. So if you scan that QR code, it brings you to our landing page, pictures of Rolando and Chuck, the three of us together, and tells
Oh,
the
that's cool.
story.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. What a cool tidbit to learn the story. Well, that's fantastic. That fantastic little tidbits. I didn't know about the QR code. Funnily enough, I've smoked plenty of the cigars actually, and so that's actually the first course at Besnas. We're going to talk a little bit more about this project, Glenn, tonight. But first things first, you do have to pick my cigar for me. This has become a tradition here on the show, where my guests will pick the cigars. I think you'll like my choices. So I have the cigar that I gave you the cigar of the year for, the Kristoff Vengeance Perfecto.
Mm,
Uh, I do have another LS Fumar Takes Top 10 cigar from this year, the Guardrail Robusto.
yeah.
The cigar that you're smoking right now, I have the Tres Compadres.
Oh, you got that. That's
Mhm.
awesome, brother.
And then I also have the Kristoff Nicaraguan as well.
Oh,
So I know it's probably a tough choice for you, but whatever you'd like me to smoke, I will gladly light up and enjoy you with a cigar.
wow, brother. There's stories behind all those. So you know what? Since I'm smoking the Tres Compadres, grab that.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. I smoked this for the first time a few weeks ago, and then I've gone back several times to it. Like you said, not I looked at the blend because I was trying to kind of pick it apart. I actually couldn't remember what it was. Um, just obviously I smoke a lot of your stuff, as you know. But I couldn't remember what the blend makeup was, and I was trying to figure it out. And I went back to it and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, wow, that's not typical. But then again, I think that's one of the things that I've always really liked about your stuff, Glenn, is like the blend tells me one thing and then it tastes like something completely different. I mean, I think you get the makeup of it, like the Vengeance, for instance, like it looks like a really powerful blend, and there's some pop to it. It's really good. It's really like it's really deep and dark in flavor. I really like it, but it's not like overpowering, like kick you in the tailpipe kind of thing.
Right.
It's probably why I like it so much. But that's what I've always liked about Cigar. So,
And
did
that's and Bear, that's pretty typical of our stuff, right? I
yeah.
don't want to blend something that's popping the chops, right? It's about the smoothness, the flavor, the richness of the cigar. It's not about strength.
Hmm.
And I would say it's real easy to make a cigar that's going to knock you on your socks. But for me, it's about smoothness, um, creaminess, without the bite, the bitterness, the aftertaste. And so the Tres Compadres, even the Nicaragua, which you mentioned, or the Guardrail, they're full flavored cigars, but they're
Right.
not over the top, right? It's not meant to prove a point, which I don't ever want to do.
Right. I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times actually, both in person and on the show too. Like you don't like powerhouse cigars. You like to blend to your palate. You like creaminess, you like that very nuanced blends kind of stuff, which even like is counterintuitive to the rustic classic look that Kristoff's always given. I remember when they've like well, I guess I have been smoking for as long as they've been around. Shit, I just did the math on that. So, yeah, I
Oh,
remember
my
the first one.
friend, you're getting old.
Yeah, I know, no kidding. My goodness. So I mean, I remember first seeing it on the shelf, and I remember thinking, and at the time, right? I mean, you think about industry trends. This is before like double and triple and quadruple a hero was the thing, and everything like this. These were stronger cigars for the market. So I guess a lot has definitely changed, but it just um but to our point, like they've just never been powerhouse. They've never been huge powerhouses and everything like that. So
No, even like our pissed off Christoph, which is the fullest bodied cigar we make. But I've had men and women smoking that cigar, and they're like, I'm like, I'm going to warn you, this has got a kick to it, but they smoke it. It's so smooth and savory,
Hmm.
but you get 15, 20 minutes into the cigar and you start feeling it, right?
Right.
So, but it's so smooth and savory. That's what I want, that smooth, savory cigar, which again, no bite, no bitterness, no aftertaste, just, but you get that sense of a full flavored cigar. And that's what we try to work towards. I mean, that's our goal.
Yeah, I
And
think that.
the pissed off is literally in our top best three selling cigars, top two best selling cigars.
Mhm. Yeah, even the I think those are probably the ones that I smoke the most: the Guardrail, the Vengeance, and the Pissed Off. Ironically, um, but I think I'll always like the Corojo Limitado will always kind of have like a soft spot in my heart too.
Gosh,
But I enjoy.
the Crow is awesome. That was the closest to a Nicaraguan Puro that I came out with. Number 11 cigar of the year, an aficionado, 94 rated, I think. Um, it still does incredibly well. It's a delicious cigar, very decadent, very rich, very complex. But again, it's not going to knock your socks off. It's just something you want to enjoy when you smoke it. It's just a great cigar.
You get some, yeah, definitely some great cigars in your portfolio. We're going to talk some more about some of this stuff that we've been kind of just dancing around here a little bit. Kind of before we kick things off here, Glenn. I was just thinking about this today. I always kick our conversations off like with like just kind of happens to thinking about it because I was thinking about I was always planning. It doesn't like I don't think it's going to happen come to fruition, but I was always hoping to go to the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby, which is going to be this year. Um, and unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. But I've always thought about like dream vacations and things like that. But what's the best vacation you've ever had? Like not one that you've
Mm.
necessarily dreamed about. Like everyone always asks that question. What's your dream vacation? What's the best vacation you've ever had?
So it's funny. This came up with conversation with friends just today. So I've been literally an avid skier since I was 12 years old, and since you mentioned the guardrail, right? So that was a tribute to a motorcycle accident I was in 4.5 years ago, and unfortunately, because of that accident, I can't ski anymore. But my ultimate vacation was skiing in Colorado at Vail, all over Colorado. So that's an ultimate destination for me, and skiing is my passion. Um, but unfortunately, I can't do it anymore. But fortunately, and it's been a blessing, we just purchased a house in Florida. And so that's our sort of new getaway, along with camping. I say camping, but it's glamping. So we've got we're blessed to have a big fifth wheel that we have a permanent site at, and that's our way during the summer here in Chicago. And it's 45 minutes away, but we feel like we're 5 hours away.
That's
It's just a
crazy.
real nice, relaxing way for us. Yeah.
Nice little destination. Fantastic. That's the place down in Florida. Like whereabouts in Florida?
So we're in Punta Gorda. So Punta Gorda
Okay.
Island, just on the Gulf side, and we're probably an hour north of Naples, and it's really nice. It's again, it's a blessing. Actually, I'm flying down there on Thursday. Spent a few days just before the show
There you
at
go.
PCA, and coming back, and I am so psyched for the show this year. Bear, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
It will be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a big year for you. We're gonna talk about that here. It'll get kicked off. So let's go ahead and kick off tonight's major point, which is always now brought to you by Gran Habano Cigars from the fertile lands of Honduras. George Rico and his family put together the very best vintages for you, the cigar smoker. From value-based hits like the Corojo Number 5 to the award-winning 20th anniversary to special projects like Zulu Zulu. Gran Habano is all about cultivating the best and making pinnacle cigars for the market. Culture, tradition, quality, premium handcrafted Gran Habano cigars. So, Glenn, look, we just talked about PCA this year is going to be really big for you. This is a really big for you, celebrating 20 years of Kristoff. like I said, I did the math earlier on that. Yeah, I've been smoking cigars since you've been on the market, which is crazy. We pretty much started about the same time. Um, which is just God, it's had to have flown by for you. I mean,
It- it's pretty crazy. I can't believe it's been 20 years. And so we're launching the 20th anniversary cigar, the Vente. It's a very special blend. It's again very rich, very complex, medium plus in body. Tobaccos from Brazil, um, Indonesia, Pennsylvania, Nicaragua, and Dominican. So very complex blend, and I'm super psyched about it. It's going to be fantastic.
that's I mean, that oh God, that does sound like an exciting blend. I'm really excited to see what comes out of that. Those flavors, because again, like we were talking about earlier at the top, like I know what those tobaccos taste like individually, but it's gonna be, I know with the Kristoff twist, I know it's gonna be something really unique and special, especially since it's celebrating your 20th year. Was there an approach that you I was going to say this for later, but we're already talking about it. Was there an approach that you took differently? I mean, was this like, did you start working on this project like years ago, knowing that this milestone was coming up? Like, what was your approach to the blend as opposed to like some of the other stuff that you've helped create?
Yeah, so we literally started this about 14 months ago, and it's incredibly special. And sadly, with Rolano's passing, who again was my mentor, taught me everything about cigars and blending and processing. He passed, but he was awesome in terms of sort of tutoring um, Renzo, who is now head of production, and he's now my master blender that I work with. So this was a very special blend that we worked together on, and we went through, I can't tell you how many different iterations of this blend, but I think we nailed it. It's absolutely awesome. And we'll have samples at the show. We'll probably be shipping probably maybe a month after the show, but we'll have plenty of samples for everyone to try.
Oh
The
wow.
packaging is elegant and similar to the Vengeance. You know, you brought that up earlier. We repackaged that. So we've gone away from, or we're going away from that sort of rust cut cedar box, loose tobacco to more contemporary, elegant, um, high gloss boxes, no loose tobacco. And so the Vengeance, which will also reintroduce the new patching of that, it's just beautiful. And again, the Vente is a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous piano finish black finish box. It's beautiful, and the cigar is even better than it looks. It's fantastic.
We're gonna get to the repackaging here in a little because I wanted to talk about that. But the to the Vente, that's what you're calling it, the 20th anniversary cigar. Um, will it have like any of the components that we've come to know from Kristoff, like the pigtail cap, the closed foot, or will it be something completely different and all its own?
No, Bear, that's a great question. So we've shifted away from the loose, the uncut foot.
Hmm.
So as we go through repackaging, you're going to see stuff without the uncut foot. It's going to be a clean cut foot. But for the Vente, we'll have that signature pigtail.
Nice.
That's again, it's just a signature of ours,
Yeah,
and
it's iconic.
yeah, it's iconic, and it's kind of what we're known for. So we'll continue to maintain that, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to you guys trying it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I noticed with the Nicaraguan the one that I got right here, how it doesn't have the unfinished foot or the pigtail cap. Like I said, we'll kind of touch on that here a little bit, but just going back to just 20 years in general. I mean, like I said, we this is it's flown by for you. We've covered your story and how you're beginning. Still one of my favorite stories. You were doing so well that at your job that you got fired at it, and that's when you decided to start your own cigar brand. Still one of my favorites. Um, but like when you first started, I mean, like what was like when you first started the brand? I mean, were you thinking long term? Like if we can go back to that moment, like I mean, I doubt you saw that you went out, went after this project and were like, you were one of the most successful people in the banking industry before you went into the cigar business. So I don't think you ever went into anything thinking, oh, like, probably going to fail at this. No, I mean, I'm pretty sure you were obviously had visions of success and everything, but what did those visions look like compared to today? Like where you're currently at? Like, did you have a 20-year plan? Like how far out did you kind of see this, and like how does it compare to where you started?
No, that's a great question. So I had a very successful career in the financial services industry for 20 years. I just got tired of it, the politics, the bureaucracy. So I quit my corporate job and decided to pursue a passion. And when I put my mind to something, I want it to be successful, right? So what attributed me to, I think, our success is surrounding myself with really amazing people, right? So I am blessed to work with like Rolando Villamil, who taught me everything about blending and processing tobacco and curing and all that when I'm still learning today. So it's an ongoing learning process, but to surround yourself by awesome people, my COO Ward, uh, Jared, my VP of sales, it's just, I'm blessed to be where I'm at today. And we all have our own special skill sets, and it's it's truly awesome, an absolute awesome experience. 20 years of growth and change, um, and frankly, just hanging out with people like you, Bear. I mean, it's a truly awesome experience for me. I'm humbled by it, and I'm looking for the next 20 years.
Well, I'm humbled by that, Glenn. Thank you so much. It's very kind. Yeah, I mean, I think when you look back at anything of 20 years, again, I just did it in a few moments ago, looking back at 20 years of cigar smoking. Um, you look back at 20 years of the company, I mean, I think it's always easy to look at like the highs and the lows, but it's interesting to look back at like some of the just like the in between moments and everything. I guess like not the
Mhm.
valleys or the peaks or necessarily, but just like where it was going well enough, but where you still wanted more, but where it wasn't necessarily bad. And I'm always interested to like look back at journeys like that. And would you say that, because our own worst critics are ourselves, would you say that there were more peaks and valleys, or would you say that Kristoff Cigars was mostly that middle journey? Just curious. I mean, you're from your opinion.
Well, it's interesting. I could think of a thousand stories. I mean, so I had no sales reps when I first started the company. Going down to Texas and Dallas, and I walked into a cigar shop and introduced myself, and I was used to corporate environment or a suit. Walked into a cigar shop, and I will keep the names out of it. Who ultimately became a great customer of ours, but said, "Oh, great." I said, "This is Glen Case. I'm Kristoff Cigars. I'm launching my own cigar brand." And he looked up at me and said, "Great, another gringo making cigars for a living. You can step out the door that you just came into." So that was pretty common, right? So in the beginning, um, and it was a very humbling experience.
And that happened in
But
Texas. We're supposed to be friendly down here.
well, no, I love Texas. I love Texas. My son lives in Texas. He lives
Right.
in Austin. He actually flew in today. He's here tonight at our house, but it's part of the journey, right? So knocking on doors, I call it shaking hands and kissing babies. I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the cigar's got to be good, and I think we've proven that over the last 20 years, and we're in all over the U.S. and of course we're in roughly 55 other countries outside the U.S. And it's really because and it's tribute to the team I have, an amazing team, and um, and a passion for the product. Right, it's a passion for producing a consistent quality cigar year after year. The first cigar I came out with was the original Kristoff Criollo, and then the Maduro, and till this day, it's in our top 5 best-selling cigars. So it's quality, consistency, and lastly, availability, right? So if you can't keep up with demand, and of course, with COVID, we all had supply chain issues, but our focus has always been on, again, the quality, consistency, and availability of cigars. And if you're out of a cigar for a certain size or SKU for a week or two, that's okay. But if you're out of stock at a brick and mortar shop for more than 3, 4, 5 weeks, my friend, that is expensive real estate, and you can't afford to do that. So again, it's quality, consistency, availability, and making sure we keep up with demand. And I think that's part of our success.
Well, I think what you did, and we're like I said, we're gonna get to the packaging thing here in just a second because I know you're creating another chapter. At least I think that's the way we're going with it. But like I said, we'll cross that bridge. But I think what I remember most about it was obviously like the loose tobacco, the different look, the rest, the very rustic feel to it. And they just looked like a cigar that, man, you wanted to smoke after a hard day. There was this, and then, as I started smoking them, there was this like this regal, there was this kind of, well, we call it rustic, and I keep using that word to describe it, but there was this kind of regal feel to them, to where
Mhm.
they felt ap- they felt they felt appropriate for a kid who was broke, just out of college, learning to smoke cigars and learning what all they were about, but at the same time made you feel like $1 million. And and the way the shelf presence and everything, and I think, and to say nothing of the fact of how awesome they were, I think that's why you made such a said made made such headway, at least early on, and then you obviously have continued to build on that. Um, the this was back, I would say back 20 years ago is when Criollo was super popular, so that was probably a really good choice to kind of kick things off with and everything. Looking back, do you think that there would have been another cigar in your lineup, like if you could transplant time a little bit, would there have been another cigar in the lineup that exists today that do you think would have like fared better in that initial position at that time? Or do you think those two were were made for that era in the cigar industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bear. I think it was made for that era, right? It was perfect timing. So when I first started Kristoff, it wasn't actually Kristoff cigars, so it was exclusive cigars. And blending is an art. There's no science behind it. And so for the first probably year, until I rebranded the company and came out with the first Kristoff, that was the original Criollo, then the original Maduro. And you know what? That put us on the map. So I had to rebrand the company as Kristoff Cigars. Anything that wasn't Kristoff, I rebranded or got rid of. But those two cigars, the original Criollo and Maduro, I wouldn't have changed anything. And back to the packaging, that rustic elegance, I think it served its purpose
Hmm.
for a long period of time. But we also talked to a lot of brick and mortar shops, and frankly, they hate the loose tobacco.
I know.
So, right? It's
I
a mess in the humidor. And so we gotta change this. And we're now 20 years in. It's time for a new look. It's time for a new feel. The cigars obviously will not change,
mhm.
but we've got to build some more continuity and a much more elegant contemporary look and feel. And so that's our goal.
It's so bittersweet for me, Glenn. Um, it's so it yeah. When you told me this last year, last PCA trade show, that you were kind of moving away from that everything, it's so bittersweet for me because I've been a smoker of your cigars for again, just epiphanied from earlier, 20 years, been smoking Kristoff, and it's just, look, I spent some time in retail. I emptied those loose leaf tobacco things, and so I mean, I know some of my former colleagues would probably agree with that sentiment, but for me, it was more really nostalgic. So, we're always opening up a box of Kristoff cigars and everything. But,
And that, and trust me, this was a hard change for me.
oh, I'm
I mean,
sure.
super hard. I mean, this was our look and feel, right, for a long time. And so we surveyed our retailers, and half of them loved it, half of them hated the loose tobacco. And, you know, 20 years later, we're like, all right, it's time for a change.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a much more elegant, rich look, and we're excited. And it's very scary. To your point, it's what I was used to, but it's time for a change.
Well, I'm excited to see what it looks like. I mean, for sure, like you said, the blends aren't going to change. The cigars are going to be the same. So for me, it's just kind of a facelift, a little bit of, you know, something. But I mean, I've always enjoyed your branding. Um, I think we talked about this, gosh, 2018 trade show, I think, maybe. As one of my
Yeah.
first, it was one of my first observations too, is like what I loved about what the layman cigar smoker can do, and can go into a humidor, and they go into the Kristoff section of whatever humidor that they're at, and they may not know much about cigars, but they know, like, hey, I like shade grown. Boom, there's a selection for me. Oh, I like Connecticut. Boom, there's like a selection for me. I like something strong. Oh, there's La Hero, there's San Andreas, there's Maduro. So like it made everything a lot cleaner and simpler for the layman, as well as like the seasoned cigar smoker that's enjoyed your cigars for years and stuff. So I mean that's
No,
what
I
I
mean,
was really like.
you're spot on. So it's always been trying to be descriptive, right? Descriptive to your point. It's Sumatra, it's Corojo Limitada, it's Lejero Maduro, Lejero Criollo, which implies what you're going to get. Um, but over the last few years, special blends like Tres Compadres, the Guardrail, which is an homage to the motorcycle accident I was in 4.5 years ago, the Nicaragua, again, descriptive, a Puros Nicaraguan blend. But so we're going to you're going to start seeing so the core line, right? So the Sumatra, the Corolla Matata, Connecticut, the they're going to still have the same name, just a different look and different feel.
Sure.
And then the special projects, which I just love telling the stories behind Trace Compadres again, Guardrail. So there's a story, and we're going to put them in little buckets, right? So there's going to be a story behind some of the stuff, and then some of the stuff is just going to be core line rebranding, but it'll still be very descriptive. And what you're looking for is what you're going to get. So I think it's the right strategy. I think it's the right approach. And I've got an amazing sales team and a great team that I'm working with that are going to continue to promote that and send that message.
Yeah, it's interesting. When things are, it's when things are hard decisions, they're also the right ones. For example, like I love this. Like Netflix is always a great story when you think about it. Netflix has actually had three basically iterations. Like when Netflix started, it obviously was mail order, right? They sent stuff into you in the mail and everything, and then they went to the boxes, where you can go and drop off and things like that. And now they're a digital format, and like each of those iterations were kind of groundbreaking and revolutionary for their time. Um, and they were probably very difficult decisions because they were successful to a point, and they got to that point because of what they had done, and to kind of leave something behind in order to progress to the next level, was probably pretty difficult. Not probably, it was really difficult. And you know, you're a successful businessman, Glenn. And so it's like I said, it's bittersweet, but your research and everything that's telling you what the market needs and everything is probably right. So hard decisions have to be made, unfortunately. So it's
No, yeah, I mean, it's very true. And, the success, thank God for the last several years. We're continuing to grow well above market rates. So I feel blessed with that. And again, it gets back to the team that I'm blessed to work with and the decision we're making. I mean, when you see the new Vengeance packaging at the show, it's over the top. It's gorgeous. I mean, and that you'll continue to see that as we rebrand. I'm working on 4 new blends that we're rebranding, or existing blends that we're rebranding, and it's going to be nothing short of beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Nice. Yeah, so I'll keep it. I have the actual box here, the original Vengeance, or
Oh, there you
actually,
go. That's
well, no,
yeah, my
this isn't the original Vengeance like we've talked about before. This is the third iteration of this cigar, right?
friend.
Right. So
It is. Yeah.
so so this will be kind of chapter 4 of the Vengeance, just in a repackaging form. But the I think I actually went through my collection, Glenn. I actually have a box of, I don't want to say all of them, but I'm pretty sure I've got a box of most Kristoff cigars over the years. I got an empty box. Like even the last Colorona series, I have some of those. Um,
Wow. That's that.
yeah,
Now you're going back in time, my friend.
yeah, I have the Glen Case signature the first time. I have the Britannia. Yeah, I was going back. I was looking at that because
Wow.
yeah, because I knew we were going to
Britannia.
talk about we were going to
That's
talk about repackaging. So I was like, holy hell,
yeah.
I want to see what I have in my collection here.
So you mentioned Britannia. So that's named after my daughter Brittany. My brother, that's a blast from the past. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you're a true collector. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was one of the I think it was the first box of Kristoff that I ever bought, was the Britannia. Um
Wow.
but yeah, no, they're gonna be missed, man. Bittersweet, but that's really cool. I'm really excited to see it. I really liked I saw it today when I was picking up some cigars. I picked up the Nicaraguan, and I saw the new box and everything like that, and that looks really slick and really sleek. And like you said, it's very upscale and really, I mean, and what's really great about what I think is really fantastic, Glenn, is the pricing doesn't follow. They're still Kristoff cigars. They're still Kristoff cigar prices. You know, it just looks a little more like we said, just a little bit more modern look, which
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah. So the Nicaragua is going to be part of our Heritage series. So you'll see some new stuff coming out of the Heritage series with that similar sort of packaging, a very traditional, almost Cuban-esque look. Um, and you mentioned price point. So yeah, we want to keep in that, $8 to $12 price point range. The new stuff is going to be a little higher. The PCA exclusive is a little higher. The Vente, our anniversary cigar, is going to be a little higher, but it's still in that reasonable price point. And I had a conversation last night with a customer of ours in Minnesota, and he called me. He's like, Glenn, what's going on with these $20 to $40 cigars?
Yeah, it's
And it's
$40 plus. Yeah, I mean
$40 plus.
yeah,
And, granted, the cost of raw material, tobacco, um, wood, plexiglass, everything has gone up. But we want to stay in that sweet spot of that $8 to $12 range. And for the more exclusive stuff, yeah, we might be in the $14 to $15 range. But it's really continue to create a cigar that's affordable to everyone, and it's still superior, in my opinion.
yeah. I mean it's there. You can probably count the cigar companies. I feel like, at least it feels like I could probably do more, but I was going through this other top, like when I was preparing for tonight's show, and I wanted to mention the price point thing. Um, and I was thinking about this, and I could count right off the bat, off the top of my head. I know I can count off five brands out of the hundreds that exist out there, where the pricing has stayed relatively consistent in that whatever vein it is, whatever that slot is, and Kristoff's one of them, Perdomo's another. You know, they started obviously 10 years before you because they just celebrated their 30th year. But
Right.
I think I think there's a place for that kind of that uber luxury cigar, and I think there's certainly a market for it. And I think that special cigars like that can sometimes exist and everything. Man, there just nothing beats a really fantastic cigar for the price. For the reasonable price. Like, because again, these are cigars that I've smoked for 20 years, as we keep talking about, and they're cigars that I go back to each and every time, and I know what I'm getting. I know that I know that I'm going to enjoy them, and it's just been one of those consistencies. So it's nice. I'm really excited to see that's something that's going to continue into this new era of Kristoff, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's about affordability, right? And so to stay in that sweet spot in terms of price point is critically important for us. Um, we've sucked up a bunch of expenses, but we want to make it affordable for everyone and continue to grow as we've seen in the U.S. market and internationally. And I think we're making the right moves. So that's our goal. That's our strategy. And we'll continue to do that. So that's what makes me excited.
Yeah. Um, I mean, so would you say that like Kristoff has recovered pretty well? Because I know the pandemic was especially hard on you because of where you manufacture your cigars. You made the difficult but important decision to retain your entire staff, entire team for the entire time. Nobody was laid off, no wage reductions that I'm aware of or anything like that, but you made that hard decision and made it work. Um um but I mean obviously it's been a couple years now. I guess you guys are since production's kind of gone back to full. So are you back up to full throttle, or are you still like at 80% capacity? Like where's that kind of at in production?
We're at maximum capacity. I mean, we can't make cigars fast enough. And to your point, Bear, we maintained every single employee. And so at Kristoff, I mean, it's full, we call it the Kristoff family, right? So health insurance, profit sharing for the sales reps is car allowance and phone allowance and bonuses and commissions and salary. And so it was really important for us, for me, to retain, I think, the best of the best. And so we did that through COVID. And ironically, like lots of manufacturers, we had huge years during COVID. And even post COVID, we've been blessed with some pretty extraordinary growth. And I think part of that's attributed to the Kristoff family philosophy, right? So um, we work together, we play together, we have fun together. And for me, it's listening to the people I'm blessed to work with. It's not me driving this train. It's listening to them. In fact, tomorrow I've got a conference call, a Zoom call with all of our sales reps, our VP of sales, our COO board, just to continue to have that open conversation of what's working, what's not working, what can we do better. And it pays off in dividends, and it's I think attributed to our success.
Now, Jared was the first employee at Kristoff Cigars, correct? I know he was the first rep, but was he the
He
first
he
employee?
he was the first in-house sales rep, and Jared's a tremendously sharp guy, funniest guy I've ever met,
Yeah, he's
and
hilarious. I've had him on my show a few
he
times. He's fantastic. It's great.
he's so funny. He's great. Um, so when we started talking, and this dates back, and he tells the story better than I can do ever. But I did an event in New England, and he was there, young guy. And back in the day, I would do trivia, right?
Right,
So
right.
whether it was around Kristoff or exclusive cigars or ring gauge, whatever it was, this guy had the answer to everything. And you brought up the Galarona
Nice.
series. and it
Yeah.
wasn't even launched then, but
Right.
he knew about it. So I'm like, dude, who are you? And are you a stopper? What's going on with you? Because you, you've answered like every question I can possibly think of. And so he was very successful as a very young man, and he's still young. But we started talking. He's like, I told him, look, I would love the opportunity to work with you. And he's like, I don't think you can afford me. So this conversation went on for a couple of years, and we kept in contact and just good conversation. And at one point, he's like, all right, let's do this. And I go, brother, I don't know what this looks like, but we'll figure it out together. And we've worked together now for 11 years, I think, 11, 12 years. And he's just been awesome. And now he's running sales for the US, and he's an integral part of the team, obviously. And so again, a blessing to hook up with him and just help expand and grow the Kristoff brand.
Yeah, I could never remember who was the first hire. I mean, I know he was the first sales rep, but I couldn't remember if or him or Ward was the first official employee of Kristoff.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had employees prior to both of them, obviously over the years, but when you're starting off as a young company, you're trying to look at cutting costs and managing expenses. But at some point, it got to the point where you got to pay up, and you get what you pay for. And so Jared and Ward are true examples of that, and I'm just blessed to work with them. And over the last 11 years, 12 years, they've got us to where we are as a team. So it's truly a family thing. It's not me dominating anyone or them dominating anyone. It's a really, really good chemistry, and we work together incredibly well, and we're as much friends as we are coworkers. So for me, that's really important. Coming from corporate, when it was all politics and bureaucracy, that's something I will not embrace within the Kristoff family. So it's truly a collaborative working environment. And again, I'm just blessed to work with these guys and everyone on the sales team. It's truly amazing.
Yeah, I remember when you first before you had opened your mouth, I saw it when we were doing the interview at last PCA. I saw the Tres Compadres a cigar that we were going to talk about and that we're both smoking right now. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Glenn did something for him, Jared and Ward, and it took a completely different direction. I was completely caught off guard by honoring your two other friends. And um but I think that just goes to show like how fortunate you've been to have such amazing people that have been mentors, in the cigar that we're smoking and have worked alongside you, like Jared and Ward, and then of course like the rest of the Kristoff families you talked about. So I think that's been as much a part of your success as the great cigars that we've been talking about thus far. So I don't think you'd disagree with that.
Absolutely. No, that's spot on. Spot on, my friend.
There are a couple of things I wanted to get back to, but I kind of wanted to break up the Kristoff chat with a little one of our fun segments, which is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. Now, this is our presidential trivia segment, Glenn. Don't worry about it; it's multiple choice. But there was a cigar that I'm going to light up here because I'm about to finish this Tres Compadres, which has been fantastic. I'm going to light up another cigar here in a little bit. That was something we are going to talk about because it was a really special cigar for me in 2023, which was the Guardrail, which is obviously a tribute to a favorite pastime of yours, which we'll get into. We've talked about a little bit, but we'll get into a little bit more here, which is motorcycle riding. But so here's the question for tonight. Which US president was an avid motorcyclist prior to his life in politics? He gave it up when he was elected to his first major office, believe it or not. So would that be A, John F. Kennedy, B, William Jefferson Clinton, also known as Bill Clinton, C. Ronald Reagan, or D. Jimmy Carter?
Wow, that's a good one. Wow. So I think Reagan was my favorite president. I'm not sure he rode motorcycles. Um, this is a tough one. Holy cow. Um, I don't think it was. I, I'm going to go with Reagan.
I actually looked it up to see if maybe he wrote something in a movie or something like that. It's actually not Ronald Reagan. Um, I was like, but I wanted to say, I was like, man, surely he was in enough of those, some of those Hollywood B movies. Like, surely he like rode a motorcycle or did something, because motorcycling was just coming up and being cool around the time that he was starring in movies and stuff and in
All right.
Hollywood. And I couldn't find anything. If someone else can find something, they can let me know. It's actually Jimmy Carter before he, yeah, yeah, before he got into, before he was the
Wow.
guy,
Who would
yeah,
have thought that?
yeah, he actually during his campaign as governor, he rode around with like Carter for governor license plate and on the back of a motorcycle and did a bunch of campaigning from a motorcycle. There was a really famed ad that Clinton did sitting on a motorcycle, but there's been no proof that he actually rode it or has ridden a motorcycle. So but
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
yeah. I, I
Carter.
I
Who
I
would have
thought the
thought it?
Bill Clinton thing was funny because I think I remember a story. I think I remember a story of you taking it like you because you had a couple of those ads where you were on motorcycles, right? Wasn't there this story once where someone gave you shit about it and said like, oh, like you're just sitting on it to be cool, and you're like, man, I've been riding motorcycles for whatever 40 years or whatever. So the isn't there wasn't there a story like that? I feel like there was.
There could have been,
Oh,
but
okay.
I've been riding bikes for good Lord. I do the math. Probably since I was 23 and I'm 59 now. So do the math.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I've been riding for a long time.
That's
But
great.
I gotta confess, I'm done riding. After the accident, I'm
That's
done.
that's what I heard. That's what I heard. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about the guardrail a little bit more here in just a second because I did want to explore that because I thought there were some interesting tidbits that I learned about the whole incident, the cigar, which has been fantastic. I freaking love that. I love the cigar. It's fantastic. Um, but that was, yeah, just as we got a little off topic, that was our presidential trivia segment, which is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. I was also shocked that I threw John F. Kennedy in there as a flyer. I was shocked that he never, I figured he would have ridden one too, but I guess he was busy on his sailboats. So
Yeah, I think
yeah.
you're probably right.
So even though he came from money, he always had this kind of air of a little bit of a rebel in him for some reason. I think he just kind of gave off that vibe a little bit. And like to your point, I think Ronald Reagan seemed like the type to ride cigars. Arnold, like people in politics, Mike Pence, former vice president, is a
Yeah.
big. He still rides apparently, and Arnold did for a long time. I don't know if he still does. Arnold Schwarzenegger too. So, uh, here's a fun fact. You'll get a kick out of this. Former Governor Ann Richards of Texas, who actually lost. She lost her reelection bid to the future president George W. Bush. Uh, at age 60, she got her motorcycle license. Harley Davidson was so excited, was so enthralled with this that they for her birthday gave her a bike. So that was
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
very cool.
That was a fun little tidbit I learned about today when I was kind of doing some background on this. It was pretty cool. But to get into the guardrail, you said this was an accident. It was 4.5 years ago. I mean, it was pretty horrific, Glenn. I mean, you've kind of detailed some of the details about it, but I kind of wanted to go back even further than this. Like this happened, there was a lot kind of leading up to this horrific day. Like
Yeah.
apparently you had like a premonition almost that something wasn't
Yeah.
right about this particular event because you used to do these events all the time, right? Where you would ride motorcycles for the cigar event and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I did this all over the country, and anywhere from 15 bikers to 60 to 80 bikers. And so, yeah, so basically, over the years, the cigar shop would say, Glen's coming out, we're going to do a bike run. And after anywhere from a 4 to 6 hour bike run, we'd do an event back at the cigar shop and sell Kristoff and do an amazing Kristoff event. But 30 days prior to this particular event, my wife and I were out back on our patio, and I'm smoking a cigar and we're talking. I go, hon, I got this event coming up in a month. I go, something doesn't feel right. She goes, well, just cancel. I go, I can't cancel it. I mean, I've done this all over the country. I'm committed. They're promoting it. I'm going to do this. So literally for 30 days, we had this conversation, and I'm like, something's not right. And we're very strong in our faith.
Mm-hmm.
So the day before the event, to my wife, I'm like, look, I'll see you in a couple of days. I got this bike run. We'll see you soon. So my sales rep picks me up, and this was in Oklahoma City, and picks me up at the airport. He goes, all right, are you ready for this run tomorrow? I go, brother, I'm telling you, something is not right about this run. He goes, what are you talking about? You've done this all over the country. It's not a big deal. I'm like, you're right. It's fine. No worries. So the morning of the motorcycle run, we're having breakfast at the hotel lobby, and I just told him, I go, brother, we're picking up our bikes here in an hour, and this is kind of messed up. And at that very moment, two paramedics walk in with a gurney into the hotel lobby that we were at. And less than 2 minutes later, they walk out and they spoke to the person at the front desk saying, sorry, wrong hotel. We go to the hotel next door. And we looked at each other and go, this is really weird. This is weird, right? So anyway, fast forward, we go to the dealership, fill out all the paperwork. We pick up our bikes, or attempting to pick up bikes. And the guy goes, all right, gentlemen, I just need your driver's license.
Yeah, I heard this part of it.
Yeah, he hands me my license. He goes, Glenn, I can't rent you a bike. I go, why? He goes, your license expired last week on your birthday. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've got 50, 60 other guys and women riding bikes. I'm going to ride with them. He goes, no problem. I'm going to fudge the date on your license. You're all good to go. Here are the keys to the bike. So we went on an amazing bike ride. We rode for 5.5, 6 hours. And I was 10 minutes away from the dealership to drop off the bike. And in my mind, I'm like, what was I worried about? We had a great run the entire day. We had just awesome camaraderie. It was
no bad weather, right? Beautiful day.
No, it was perfect. So I'm in the far left-hand lane in Oklahoma, going through a sweeping right-hand turn and crosswinds, which they're known for. And I remember leaning into the bike in the far left-hand lane, going, and these winds are buffering, and I've got the bike leaned over as far as I can go. The peg hits, and the last thing I remember is that rear wheel breaking loose. When I came to, and I was told it was about 45 minutes later, there was a woman, off-duty nurse, praying over me, and the paramedics were cutting off my clothes on the side of the road. I passed out, felt no pain, but I just remember this woman praying over me. The next time I came to it, I was in the ambulance, and there was two paramedics working on me, and I said, how bad is it? And I will never forget, they said, we're doing the best we can. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. So I passed out again. Next time I came to, I was in the ER, and they were stitching up my face. So I ended up shattering my tibia in 13 different places, torn meniscus. So I've got a titanium plate with bolts going through it, holding my tibia together. They repaired my meniscus, I shattered my eye socket, my cheekbone, concussion, um, and I ended up spending 8 days in Oklahoma City in the hospital, 3 months of physical therapy, and I'm just blessed to be here. So that's a short story. And so we kept that a big secret for a long time. And it wasn't until probably 3.5, 4 years later that I came out with the guardrail. So the punchline of this, I had a guardrail doing about 70 miles an hour, which I don't recommend doing. It's not fun.
Right.
And I call them a brain scooper, little Harley helmet. And that's the only thing that saved me. Otherwise, I would not be here. So I am blessed. And the whole punchline of this whole thing is being strong in your faith, listening to God, and reacting to that, which I did not do. But I'm blessed to be here.
Wear a helmet.
And
I also wear a helmet always.
wear a helmet always. And yeah, but the cigar is awesome. I mean, Brazilian wrapper, and we've got tobacco in the filler that's from Zimbabwe. And I think
Zimbabwe.
so I think we're probably the first to use that tobacco. And it's just a phenomenal cigar. And it's I think it's our top 2, top 3 best-selling blends. So it's done incredibly well.
I
And so if you look at the band itself,
Mhm.
you've got motorcycle bars on there,
Right.
the KC logo in the middle of it as the headlight, and the backside of that band are angels' wings, which the God was looking over me, and it was the angels that were protecting me and got me through it.
Absolutely. It's an incredible story. Was your rep with you, or you were solo getting back to the?
No, my rep was with me, and he and I were dropping off the bike. He was in the far right lane, and I was in the far left lane again. And sadly, he witnessed the whole thing.
But he was
Um,
okay, right?
he was fine. No, he
Okay.
was absolutely fine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. That would have been harrowing, obviously, from your perspective, obviously, but I mean, from his too, to witness it, I'm sure that changed his life too quite a bit. Respecting your privacy, obviously here, Glenn. Was there? I mean, was there something you were worried about? Why about it getting out? Like why you kept it a secret? I mean, was there just something I've always taken you as a very private person anyway. Is that the answer to the question? Simple enough.
yeah. I think that was it. I mean, I'm pretty private, but I'm very strong in my faith and sharing that with people at events I've done. Um, but I think eventually coming out with the cigar was um, sort of a message, and help me sort of carry through conversations with others that are questioning faith. And I've been blessed with the opportunity of praying with people, whether they're fighting cancer or whatever events. And I pull people out of events and like, brother, can I pray with you? And I think that's part of my goal is to share the word and expand his kingdom. And I think this ironic, unfortunate accident sort of facilitated that. Um, yeah,
It had to be like a full circle, like cathartic event for you too, to see guardrail on the shelves, to kind of see the project come to fruition, what it represented to you. I'm sure it kind of gave you a lot of closure too. I mean, God, I mean, I can't, glad I've never been in that position. I can't imagine what it was like for you.
yeah. No, there was certainly some closure there, and again, it's open up conversations like I'm having with you, Bear. Just
Hmm.
you know, people in faith, or whether they have strong faith or they don't, but I can share this story, and it's connecting me with a lot of people, and it's a blessing for me. And I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, man. I mean to go to more cheery conversation about it, like you had mentioned, it is a very unique cigar. It was number 10 on my list this year. It was number 8 on Cigar Coop, top
Yeah.
30. That's certainly an accolade to it. I I was blown away by it, and you consider again, you know what a fan I am of your cigars in general, but for a long time, for as I was smoking it the last year plus, I've been really been smoking that and Vengeance like kind of like crazy and stuff. I'm still trying to figure out which one I like better because the Vengeance has always kind of been my jam for the longest time. So
Mhm.
this one's kind of, I don't know if it's trying to dethrone it or not, but I've really enjoyed it, particularly in the Robusta Vitola, um, which I like the Matador as well. I've got that one here too. But the Zimbabwe tobacco was an interesting story as well because I remember I remember you giving an interview or reading something about the first time you had it was like it blew you away, and then you ended up buying a crop of it that you weren't happy with, and then I guess it was like the third time that you kind of dove into it that were it was great again, and you ended up putting that into the cigar. What was it that captivated you about the Zimbabwe, the flavor of it? What was it? Because it had to have been a unique experience because it is a very unique tasting cigar.
Yeah. No, 100, yeah, 100%. So we were in Germany at the Dortmund show, um, and Rolando VML, again, my mentor, said, "My friend, I've got some great tobacco." He goes, "I blended this cigar for you." And we were in Dortmund at the show, and I smoked it. I'm like, "My friend, this is amazing, absolutely amazing." So this was pre-COVID. So we bought a ton of this tobacco, and what we ended up with, it was subpar. It was not good. And I reblended it with Rolando. I'm like, brother, what? I don't know what happened, but it was a very bad crop. And 2 seasons later, we finally got some tobacco and started playing with the blend again. And then that's where we said, this is it. The guardrail blend, that infusion of that Zimbabwe tobacco in the filler, it just, it, I think we nailed it.
Nice.
Um, but it was very bizarre. I mean, I was sold on it in the very beginning, and you never know what can happen with crops, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't right. But I think we finally nailed it. We maintained patience, persistence, and came up with a blend that is doing incredibly well. And it's an awesome cigar.
I mean, hats off to you for recognizing the potential of it, and then but also not getting too frustrated with it early on when it kind of took a turn on you that you didn't expect. Um, I mean, I think that's, I mean, because you could have very easily again rushed this and been like, "Hey, look, first cigar was Zimbabwe tobacco, blah blah blah," and to use your words, it could have been subpar, and you could still have been the first to market with it, but you're like, no, you wanted something special with it. And I think you got it. You nailed it. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's where patience comes in, right? You don't want to rush something. You don't want to push something to market
yeah.
just because it's new, but it wasn't right. So we waited for it, and now we've got a beautiful tobacco, and it's consistent, and it's amazing, and then it's it's been great.
Is there potential for anything like another use for it? Like I don't want to go so far as to say Zimbabwe wrapper. I mean, it might be down the line or something like that. But do you think it could ever be used as like a binder or feature more prominently? I don't know. Again, I don't know how much. I'm not asking you to reveal the ingredients here, but I don't know how much you're using in the blend. I don't know if it's, if it's a full leaf, half leaf, it doesn't matter. I'm not asking you to divulge that either. But like, could it be attributed? Like, do you foresee the ability for Zimbabwe tobacco to be a more prominent part of a blend, like a wrapper or like filler, like a binder, for example, or do you think
Yeah, I mean
it's
it could be. I mean it could be, and it really depends on the yield. And unfortunately for wrapper grade tobacco, out of Zimbabwe. We've not had good experience with that. So as a filler or binder grade, absolutely, it's
It's pretty
phenomenal.
ugly. It's pretty.
Yeah, it's not. I haven't come up with a blend for wrapper grade, and again, the yield is very low for wrapper grade,
Mm, yeah, so
which
it'd be something
drives
you
up price.
right.
So, but if we can infuse the flavor of that Zimbabwe tobacco as a filler, which we're doing now, or binder, it doesn't have to be pretty, but it has to be processed right.
Hmm.
The flavor has to be there. So we're going to continue to experiment with it, and yeah, there's opportunities on the horizon for it.
Nice.
Not as a wrapper.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna tell you it's going to be wrapper, but binder filler for sure, obviously.
Nice. Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about ingredients. You did an interview recently too, where you happened to be part of a conversation where they talked about ingredients. Because I think like if we go back 20 years ago, right, like when you were producing cigars, like no one, you know, if people were asking you this question, Glenn, it was probably very few and far between. Like if you went to an event, like one of your first Kristoff events, no one was asking you, "Hey, this Kristoff Criollo, what kind of binder are you using? What kind of filler are you using?" Those questions were probably few and far between. Where now, as like that's pretty, everybody wants to know. Like it's like standard for you
Yeah,
to almost to kind of divulge that, which is probably one of the biggest differences you've seen in the last 20 years. Um, but but you made up a really good point that I thought because they were talking about ingredients and like how like just because you happen to know, and we talked about this earlier, you know, I see your blend and I'm like, oh, I know what that should taste like. But what I end up smoking is something that's still very unique that doesn't have, it's not prototypical broadly for prototypical Brazilian or whatever. There's a very uniqueness to it, which I've always, that's always a pleasant surprise and I've always enjoyed about Kristoff
yeah,
cigars. But you made a really good point in that discussion. You were talking about how like, well, you say like, hey, we've got Dominican binder and filler, but you don't necessarily talk about priming or region or anything like that. So there's still some stuff that's kind of kept close to the vest that makes it proprietary and special, which is really nice. Um, is the, I know I was going here. I had a point to make, I promise. But I mean, is that the more and more as you've seen in the last 20 years where more information is requested by the consumer or requested by the market, has that made your job easier or harder as a cigar
no,
manufacturer?
no, there is a great question, right? So we've got much more sophisticated cigar smokers, and they're diving into the details of the blend and the origin of the tobacco and where it's from and what priming on the plant is it. So I love that. No, I love and enjoy those questions because, yeah, I mean, you go back a few years and people weren't asking. They're just like, I smoke it, I like it, or I don't like it, whatever. But
Right.
now people are diving into it. And to the point I've done personal tasting seminars and having people trying literally allspice on their tongue and then puffing on a certain blend of mine or um, dry cocoa and tasting that or just smelling it and then taking a puff on a cigar. So we're getting a much more educated consumer, which I love. And I love that interaction where they're diving in deep um, to your point, priming's on the plant. I mean, who's talking about priming on the plant? I mean, it's just it's crazy. Or origin of the tobacco, or whether it's wrapper, binder, filler. So I enjoy that conversation. I appreciate that conversation. Um, but at the same time, to your point, I'm not going to disclose everything, right? So
Right. You got to.
um, it's proprietary, right? Certain things, but I will. I love those conversations with people where we're diving into and dissecting the cigar and the components of it, and it's a wonderful conversation. Um, and for others that just so say, look, I love the cigar, I love smoking it. I just love having that conversation with them. But it's also when you talk about flavor profiles, right? Lots of people can't pick out the flavor profiles of a cigar, whether it's coffee, cocoa bean, spice, black cherry, hints of dried apricot, or dark chocolate. But when you smoke a cigar with someone, you go, all right, as we're smoking this together, do you pick up on this blend or this flavor note?
Mhm.
That is awesome. And you see people's eyes light up and they're like, oh, now I get it. I get it.
Right.
For a lot of smokers, they can pick up on spice and pepper. That's kind of an easy flavor note to pick up on. But when you're talking about the more nuances of the flavor notes of a cigar, that's when those conversations get really exciting for me. And I've had people pick up flavor notes in the cigar that I make that I've never picked up on. I'm like, that is awesome.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned it, I pick up on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think one of the I think this goes to the point we've talked about on some roundtables of Smoking Syndicate and some other discussions that I've been a part of, where we talk about factories that have or cigar makers that have like a signature to them. And there's certain cigar. It's funny because I mean I smoke a lot of different cigars. I have a very eclectic palate. I enjoy a lot of different cigars, a lot of different brands. Um, you know, Hector over at Espinosa Cigars, I always say like he's whatever he like he found like the key to my palate. Like he makes cigars and I thoroughly just enjoy pretty much everything he's ever blended for Eric. Um, but there's an Espinosa signature. AJ Fernandez has a very quintessential thing that's very him, Nick Perdomo. And then
Absolutely.
Kristoff is no different. What you and Rolando have built are no different. But I think what I find very unique and very interesting about Kristoff, as I mentioned before, it's not just the descriptors and the unique experience that you're in for, despite what your preconceived notion of those tobaccos.
Yeah.
I think it's very appropriate because at the same time, like I know Dean Parsons has cigars made in your factory too, but like you make up 90% of that factory's allotment. So like nobody else tastes like Kristoff because Kristoff is made at this very specific place. And so and nobody else has kind of captured that because it's a very unique factory, unique setting and everything like that. So I think that's why if I could put a point to this, I think that's why Kristoff is so much more different and unique at the same time compared to a lot of the other stuff on the market too. Like even the way like your Nicaraguan cigar, for example, you think of Nicaraguan cigars because it's Nicaraguan puro, just like the Tres Compadres, and you
Yeah.
think pepper, spice, like it's gonna hit me, and it doesn't. It doesn't have that smack you in the face kind of feel to it, but they're still very good cigars. So
No, absolutely. I mean, I mean, you nailed it on the head right there. I mean, you think on Nicaraguan puro, it's big pepper and spice, but that's not my palate.
right,
Um, so it's about the smoothness, the complexity. Um, and that's just me. I mean, I can make a big pepper bomb, big spice bomb like anyone can, but if it's not something I enjoy, I'm not going to blend that cigar. I'm not going to sell it. And I've toyed with that, but it's not my palate. So, most cigar smokers are mild to medium bodied cigar smokers.
mm-hmm.
If you look at the industry, and even if they're full bodied cigar smokers, like people that smoke the pissed off Kristoff, it's about the smoothness and the flavor without that harshness, that bitterness, that bite. I mean, and it's, trust me, Bear, and you know better than anyone, it's really easy to introduce that big, knock you over the top, punch you in the jaw blend.
Right.
But that's not me. That is not me. We double and triple ferment all of our tobacco, which creates that very smooth, rich flavor without that bite, without that bitterness. Um, Good,
Well,
bad, or indifferent. I mean, it's worked for us.
well, I think that's reminiscent too of the era that you grew up in of cigar smoke because you've been, I know, as the storybooks say, you've been smoking since you were 17, 16, 17, right?
Yeah,
And like, again, doing the math on it, this was a time where like the Powerhouse cigar didn't exist until the last 20 years. It just wasn't on the market. It just
right.
didn't it, so the era that you kind of grew up and fell in love with, what made you love cigars was that kind of more nuanced mild to medium, but to your point where I think you've improved upon it, and you've noted it several times in all of our conversations, Glenn, is the lack of bitterness and bite, that acidity, that acridness that
Right.
was probably pretty prominent in the cigars that you smoked. And when I first started smoking cigars, was like the telltale sign for me to always put the cigar down. Like when a cigar got too hot and acrid and bitter, it's like, okay, time to ditch it. And while that still certainly exists with certain blends today, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just physics. Something gets hot towards the end, it's just going to start. There's this going to be a natural acridness to it. Things like the Vengeance, for example, I can smoke that cigar pretty far down, and it doesn't do that,
No, absolutely.
which is
No.
crazy. This story will probably pain you, Glenn, because I felt bad about it, but I smoked a Vengeance the other day. That I'd found it had been sitting out a little too long, so it had been out of humidity. And normally when that happens, it's like it gets crispy and it gets hot and like it just doesn't smoke right and everything. Man, that cigar still smoked, and there was a little crackling on that wrapper a little bit just because it had been out way too long. But man, I still smoked that thing all pretty far down before I started getting any hot temperature. And that was incredible. That is an
Yeah, the
incredible
Vengeance
experience.
is that broadleaf Connecticut wrapper on that is just awesome. It's a phenomenal cigar. And again, thank you for the accolades on that and the ratings. But that cigar is just fantastic. And when you see the new packaging in less than 2 weeks, it's over the top. It helps it do more justice. But yeah, the Vengeance is just a rock star cigar.
I'm looking forward to it, Glenn. Like I said, that's bittersweet, but it represents the next chapter of Kristoff, which I'm excited about. So we've mentioned PCA a couple of times. This is a quick turnaround for you guys. Um, First of all, I want to congratulate you on something, Glenn. We noted this on a previous show on Cigar Coop Times Primetime Special Edition. At the time, we've gotten some more information in the last couple of days, but at the time, Kristoff was one of the only brands and one of the first companies to actually put out information about what was coming out at PCA this year. So I want to congratulate you on some incredible planning on your part. And again, celebrating 20 years, that's fantastic. But how difficult was that for you? Specifically, I'm sure it's been difficult for everybody, obviously, but it's been July. It's been July for the last 20 years, and now all of a sudden you're like,
Absolutely.
okay, we're doing this. We're doing this in March. We're doing this in a little less than 9 months. So what kind of approach did you take, and how different has Christoph been the last year as you guys have been preparing for this quick turnaround?
Well, Bear, it's a great question. And it's a quick turnaround for everyone, right? So
Mhm.
we want to get ahead of that curve. And, in large part, so Jared, he's like, all right, we have to come out with a press release. I'm like, brother, let's do it. We'll make it happen. So we put together a press release. I spent time at Action Label um, doing press OKs, which is critical. Making sure that the bands and the box labels and the box stalkers are coming out like we want them to look and should look. So a lot of preparation, a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it was a lot of conversation with Ward and Jared, and making sure that we're prepared for this, and making sure that we get ahead of this curve, because it was a short turnaround time. Um, but it was, again, it's the Kristoff family. We work together really well and plan and coordinate, and it's the people around me that really make it happen.
That had to be stressful because you know that this was going to be your 20th year, and probably at least a couple years ago. Like I know you said you started the process of blending it 14 months ago, but it was probably on the action board, so to speak, a couple years ago. And you're probably thinking, okay, cool. We have till this summer. We can start it at X point to get the ball rolling a little bit. Then all of a sudden, about 18 months ago, you get thrown the curveball. Like, okay, trade show is going to be in March. I mean, did that exude any kind of like? I mean, did it put a lot of pressure on you, or did you feel like your organization has been so well that you were able to shift pretty seamlessly?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was certainly a sense of urgency, right? To the blend for the Vente, for example, the 20th anniversary, that was well in place. But when you sort of start backing in the timetable and designing the bands and designing the box labels and working with the printer and the box factories, we deal with two different box factories right now, and coordinating with them to making sure that this all sort of comes together in a timely fashion. It's incredibly difficult, and unfortunately, uh, uh, there's, and I count myself in this. You get complacent, right? You think you have all this time, but you don't. And so, working with our partners again, the Box Factory, Jason, the Action Label, making sure this all comes together in a very timely and cohesive way is critical. And so it's about partnerships and relationships to make sure it comes together as planned. And um, it's not perfect, but I think we're pretty well on target.
Nice. Glenn, I actually, you would think that I would asked this question quite a bit over the last few months. I haven't. You're the first person that I'm going to ask this question from a manufacturing perspective or a brand ownership and manufacturing perspective. Long term, this quick turnaround presented its own challenges. We just talked about that. But long term, having the trade show during this time of year, do you think ultimately that's a benefit for you as a manufacturer and owner, or is it like does it will it be problematic?
No, I think it's the right call, right? I think it's the right call. So the biggest concern I had was, we've got TPE, and then we have PCA in March. The big concern was TAA, and when does that happen? Because typically TAA is in kind of the March timeframe, which TA is a very exclusive group, and I've been blessed to be part of that for I think 15 years, something like that. But now they bumped that to probably August, September. I think it's September this year. So since they shifted that, uh, I think that was the right move. But for PCA, I think that's the buying time, right? You want to be early in the buying season for brick and mortar and online retailers to sort of buy in and build up inventory versus waiting until July and delayed shipping and all that. All of a sudden they're getting stuff in early fall going into the slow season, which is not the opportune time to be selling cigars. So I think PCA moving to March, I think is the really, really right call. I mean, an amazing call to you. Yeah.
Awesome. I know that Jared's been on the board, so that what a wonderful representation for Kristoff Cigars to be on the board. That's got to be
Absolutely.
that was a huge. I'm sure that was a real nice feather in your cap for Jared. I mean, and I was really pleased. I know that I was personally really pleased when I saw that he was up for it and was ultimately elected to it, which was fantastic because I think, like you, I have a very high opinion of him, and I think he's got a really good perspectives. The tired version of the word that I'm looking for, but we'll go with it. I think he's got a very strong perspective, not only from a Kristoff Cigars point of view, but also from just the cigar industry at large on how things should kind of move and operate and things like that. So I think that having him, a person of his intelligence, and he brings a load of experience in his prior career too that I think is obviously benefited Kristoff, but I think could also benefit the industry at large too. So that was really great to see him take
No,
that position.
absolutely. He's got a huge pulse on the industry, and to have him part of the board of the PCA was awesome for not only Kristoff, but certainly for the industry itself. And to your point, his experience in merchandising, he's been amazing at merchandising Kristoff product, and just a true blessing for Kristoff itself, and again, the industry as a whole as part of PCA.
Absolutely. You mentioned TAA a moment ago, and earlier tonight you talked about your one of your offerings at the trade show this year will be another PCA exclusive, which you did one last year, the Bash Press Toro, and then but you've done a TAA cigar pretty consistently in the past, and you've also done a PCA cigar in the past as well.
Mhm.
Um, why why is it important for you to support both those organizations with exclusive offerings? I've always been curious to ask this.
Um, it's a very good question, but the answer for me is pretty obvious, right? So for PCA, if you show up to PCA as a supporter or member of PCA, and you're there supporting the organization, um, it makes total sense that you provide offerings to those that show up that are exclusive to PCA members, retailers, online guys that invest in their time and effort to show up to that show. So we want to support them, and the same with TA, same thing. So we do exclusives for TA, and again, it's a very small, intimate organization. There's probably 75 retailers as part of TA, and there's maybe 30, 35 manufacturers. And to support the industry in that way is very important to us, and supporting the industry as a whole. So that for us, it's an easy decision to do something special for those that support both organizations.
I think TAA was a much different. I think you'll agree with this, and this isn't was said with any malice or discontent about it. But I think TAA was a different organization 15 years ago when you first joined it. What has it meant to the company to be a part of that organization? I'm not really interested in talking about where it is now necessarily as an organization, but I think it was much different where it was 15 years ago. I think you'll probably agree to that. My point is over the last 15 years or so, the Kristoff's been a part of it. What has it done for the company? How has it benefited you to be part of that organization from a manufacturing perspective?
Well, I mean, another good question, right? So when I think of TA, I think of sort of the best of the best, right? So best of the retailers in the country, the best of the manufacturers in the country, the best of the brand owners. And so to be part of that is, it, it's an honor, obviously, number one. But to have that relationship with those top 75 retailers in the country and to come out with an exclusive for them gives us a special place in their humidor. And that speaks for Kristoff and any other manufacturer that has those relationships with those retailers. So it's an honor, and it's not easy to be part of TA. There's they're very extensive vetting process and voting process as a retailer or manufacturer to get in there. And again, it's an honor to be part of it, and to see it grow, to your point, over the last 15 years and develop and mold into something even more special, because it's been around for, I'm probably going to misquote this, probably 70 years, maybe. I don't know, 75, somewhere around there.
TAA?
So it's an honor to be part of it. Yeah, TA.
A little over 50 because you guys just did the
Oh,
50th anniversary a few
thank
years
you.
ago.
So it's
Yeah,
over 50. Yeah.
yeah, it's been around for a long
So
time.
thank
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can't believe. I mean, we just passed the 90th anniversary of PCA.
Yeah.
They've been around since 1933, which is crazy. I can't. I hope we do something really special for the 100th. That would be so cool. Here, in 9 years to be at that trade show. That'll be something special. To
Yeah.
be at the 100th anniversary and stuff. So, um, but um, but awesome. Well, Glenn, we just have a few more questions to conclude our evening. I really do appreciate the conversation and being a guest on my show, especially as you mentioned right before your little um your little vacation to relax before the mayhem of PCA and then PCA itself. So I appreciate you making some time for me, especially knowing that your son Christopher actually came in town today. Makes me
Yes.
feel even worse that I'm keeping you from him. But thank you so much for the time as we kind of make our way through these last few questions here. Um,
My pleasure.
this one's new. You haven't been on the show since we launched this new segment. So this is our Everybody Eats segment, sponsored by Postania Cigars. If you always make sure that your service towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Postania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Postania, everybody eats. Um, so the you mentioned the Kristoff family, and we've talked about this in the past. Terry loves to invite all new members of the Kristoff family, aka employees. You guys bring them into Chicago. They come to your home. She cooks for them, and it's a big deal. Um, so I wanted to ask the question of like, what's some of your best experiences eating with other people? But I imagine that was going to be the answer. So I'm going to shake things up. Um, what is the favorite dish or meal that you and Terry love to share with the newest members of the Kristoff family? Is there something that's consistently at that meal for every new member to the Kristoff family, or is it something different each time?
You, my wife makes the best lasagna you can imagine, and some of the best Mexican food that you can imagine.
Now
So
there's a
that's
mix. I
for the
like
two
that.
staples. Those are the two staples that she makes for our our family and the Kristoff um, new membership. We'll put it that way.
That's awesome. What are some of the Mexican dishes that she likes to make?
Oh my gosh, she makes an amazing chicken enchilada. It's
Oof,
over the top.
nice.
Uh, Definitely not local because she makes this amazing sour cream sauce over the top of it. It's over the top, and of course lasagna. It's low
Right.
with carbs and calories, but it's so good. It is so good.
Not for the faint of heart. El enchilada is the what I call the Mexican lasagna. It's beautiful. I
Yes.
love both those dishes. They're fantastic. Um, sour cream sauce is so, oh gosh, it's so good. When it's made right, it's so fantastic.
Mm.
Um, you have to have the right balance of like that again, that creaminess and the sourness, and then you can kind of mix different things in it too, like garlic and lime and stuff. Um you could just make a beautiful caramel sauce, which is fantastic. Where like was it I've never had the pleasure, unfortunately, of meeting Terry. So, like, where did she pick up these two? That's a pretty cool background. Lasagna, Italian and Mexican food. Like, where did those come from? Were there family recipes or something she just picked up on and loved to start making and just got really good at it? Like,
Well, it's funny. She's got a very limited appetite, right? So I love food. I can eat anything. She's got a pretty focused um, palate for what she likes to eat. One is Italian and the other is Mexican. She sort of fell into that, and people expect that when they come to our house, that's what you're going to get. It's going to be Italian, lasagna, or Mexican. So that's just kind of how it's worked out.
Mexican's my specialty too. So that goes back to my grandmother and my mother. I grew up on a lot of classic dishes, and they helped we make a lot of things. So if I ever have the fortunate ability to have you and Terry over for a meal, I'd love to make some Mexican food for her and get her take on some of my recipes. That'd be great.
We would love that, my friend. That would be awesome.
So, um, what's So what's I want to get you in trouble here, Glenn. What's your favorite of the two of hers? Which one do you prefer? If a gun had to be put to your head, because I know you love them both.
Yeah, I mean, her chicken enchiladas are over the top with that sour cream verde sauce. It's just, there's nothing better.
It's bomb.
It's so
Nice.
rich. It's so good.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome.
Her lasagna is again second to none. It's amazing.
It's where I bet it's like lasagna because it's such a classic dish. You've probably had it other places too, and like everything you just compare it to hers, and that's like nothing compares to it. Like I feel like that way about some of my like grandmother's recipes and stuff. Like I've tried to remake them and they come close, but like whenever I have them somewhere else, it's like, oh God, this is not even close to being good. It almost kind of sometimes it kind of ruins the dish that I'm eating, but not necessarily. If it's good, I'll still enjoy it. But I'm always comparing it to my grandmother's recipes for
Right.
sure.
Of course, my friend. It's the benchmark, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that was our Everybody Eats segment sponsored by Postania Cigars. If you always make sure your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Postania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Postania, everybody eats. Now, Glenn, we've done this segment before. You've had the privilege of being a part of it, and this is our asylum moment, which is refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. From some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for asylum cigars. Light up an asylum and choose your refuge. Now, Glenn, I'm going to ask you a pretty poignant one. Usually, I just ask the guests to talk about a time, but go back to a moment. Maybe you can remember it, maybe you can't. And if you can't, that's totally fine. And I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Um, but after the experience that you had with, the accident and everything like that, I'm sure there were a lot of things that you enjoyed afterwards. Kind of a new lease on life, obviously, a very harrowing experience for sure. Do you remember the first cigar that you smoked back when you were back in the saddle, so to speak, and kind of fully recovered after that whole terrible incident?
The first cigar I smoked after the accident. Wow.
I know I'm
I
putting you on the
don't.
spot. Okay.
I honestly, I don't. Yeah.
Do you recall how long it was after the accident? Or was it several? I imagine it was several months. Maybe not.
Mm. It was probably less than a month because honestly, I smoke 4 to 7 cigars a day. Um, but after the accident, I was on pretty heavy painkillers for a while, and I didn't share this with you, but we were in the process of building the home I'm in right now,
Yeah.
and so we were living in our travel trailer for 3 months. And then when I had the accident, there was no way for me to get in and out of the travel trailer until our house was done. So we moved into my in-laws' house. And yeah, so at that point, because I was in a wheelchair for 2 months, yeah, boy, I remember going out in the garage and smoking the cigar, but it was probably 2 to 3, maybe 3 weeks after the accident that I got back in the regimen of smoking the cigar.
Oh, okay. So it was pretty quick. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
And
Yeah.
it was your father-in-law was the one who originally started the business, right? That was the brokerage that Terry worked for that you joined up before you guys started, right?
Wow, my friend, you got copious notes there. So my father-in-law was a broker in the cigar industry for a long time. Terry brokered cigars with him for a long time. And when I left corporate, we decided to broker cigars together. And 6 months later, our largest manufacturer let us go.
Right, right.
And I'm like, "Ooh, our numbers are up. We've broken all records in terms of sales." She said, "Welcome to the brokerage industry." So as a
Yeah.
broker, manufacturers hire brokers because it's all commission based, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
There's no base salary, there's no benefits. And so what you eventually do as a broker is you work yourself out of
Out
a
of a
job.
job, right? Your great success,
Right.
yeah, your
So,
great success is getting fired.
right. So when that happened to us, I'm like, I looked at my wife, go, what just happened? We just broke the record. She said, welcome to the brokerage industry. And, we'll just have to find another manufacturer to fill that spot. I'm like, oh no, I can't live this way. If we're going to work ourselves out of a job, which her dad and she did for years, I'm like, I can't live that way. And she's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to start.
Think we're having some technical difficulties here. So stand by with us real quick as we kind of take a moment here where this is our 284th take. This is our 284th take. We're live with Glen Case, of course, of Kristoff Cigars. So we're just waiting for that to come back up here. So we'll be back momentarily. Here in just a second. I know that we're still broadcasting live. Really do appreciate our audience for staying up late with us tonight. Glenn will be back here momentarily with us. I think we're just experiencing some technical difficulties, waiting for him to come back on. But Glenn was talking a little bit about his history and his background and his story. It's something we've discussed numerous times on this show. It's one of my favorite stories from the industry is when he left corporate America and joined forces with his wife Terry in the cigar brokerage industry, and they did so well that they ended up getting fired, which as people who know in the way around their industry. That when they broker cigars, that's kind of the name of the game and everything. So instead of taking up another company to represent for cigars, Glenn decided to start Kristoff Cigars, and that's what led to this journey 20 years ago for Glenn and his wife Terry, and the Kristoff cigar name and everything. So we'll wait for him to come back here just in a few more moments. I do again, I really appreciate our audience for tuning in tonight. As always, as I mentioned before, our audio broadcast is sponsored by Gran Habano Cigars. Gran Habano brings some of the finest vintage tobaccos from the fertile lands of Honduras, bringing you compassionate, great cigars that are a part of the amazing industry. So be sure you download, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, including iHeartRadio. And tonight's audio broadcast is courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. Tonight's guest, obviously, was sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. We do want to thank those folks as well for this amazing show. As we wait for Glenn to kind of come back in, we'll wrap everything up. What he was talking about here, of course, was we're talking about the asylum moment and everything. We're talking about his first cigar, actually, after that accident that we talked about earlier in the show, where he was in a horrific motorcycle accident about 3.5-4 years ago, which led to the creation of the Guardrail cigar, which I'm smoking right now, which is a fantastic blend. Brazilian wrapper, and also with the most unique characteristic of this tobacco, or excuse me, of this cigar, is the Zimbabwe tobacco that's in the filler. And I'm smoking it right now, and it's absolutely sensational. So we'll wait for Glenn to come back on here. Again, appreciate everyone's patience as we kind of get through this. 1 second here. Let me see if I can get him back on. But it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have Glenn on as we can again wait for him. I appreciate everyone's patience as we kind of get everything back online here momentarily. Really do appreciate it. Glenn is making his way back on, and we'll kind of conclude this evening here in just a few moments. if there's any questions from the chat, I'll be sure to ask Glenn when he comes back, or maybe I can answer them too. But I hope everyone has had an enjoyable evening. Again, really appreciate my audience for tuning in so late and staying with us. Let's just have a couple more minutes to conclude our show. This is our 284th take. We are on the road to 300. We'll be doing our 300th episode later this year, which I'm going to plan on making something very special for all you loyal listeners and watchers. It's been fantastic. Of course, our PCA trade show here is in a couple of weeks. We are going to have a show next week prior to the trade show. There will be no show the week of the trade show. So in 2 weeks, there won't be a show on that Sunday, but stay tuned to all of our channels, the LS Fumar page on Facebook, Cigar Coop Facebook, our Instagram accounts, LS Fumar, Cigar Coop, the Smoking Syndicate, and Let's Get Pairing as part of the Cigar Coop Coalition. You'll be able to catch a lot of fantastic coverage that we're going to be bringing to you the week of the PCA trade show, some amazing interviews, some great coverage. There is going to be a spirits pavilion this year at PCA. So if you guys are into your pairings, be sure to check out Let's Get Pairing, as they'll be taking a special look at the spirits pavilion and providing some amazing coverage for you at this year's PCA trade show. So again, we're waiting anxiously back, and Glenn looks like he's back. Glenn, can you hear me, sir?
Bear, I'm with you, my friend.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, the timing's pretty good. I mean, we made it through almost the entire show here. Just had a couple more quick questions, everything. But I was kind of filling guests in on the conclusion of the story. It's still one of my favorite stories about how the birth of Kristoff Cigars 20 years ago was because you got fired from your job because you did amazing at it. Like it was something that was just, again, foreign to you. Like, hey, we broke all these records, and all of a sudden now we're out of a job. And then Kristoff Cigars was born from that. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I looked at my wife, I'm like, we just set these records, what happened? She's like, well, welcome to the brokerage industry. So as a broker, you build up a brand, and all of a sudden they go in-house sales. And as a broker, you just try to find another brand to backfill. And when she's like, well, what do you do? I'm like, I don't make my own cigars. She goes, what do you know about making cigars? I go, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out really quick. And so that's when Kristoff started. That was in 2004.
I know you guys used brokers initially, just like most small brands, as you mentioned. But was it because of your experience? Was it a goal to go in-house as quickly as possible eventually, or was that something that was not necessarily in the forefront of your mind? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So with any brand owner or manufacturer, when you start off, you've got to go with brokers, right? Because there's no overhead. It's 100% commission. But the ultimate goal was to hire in-house sales reps, right? So the only thing they're selling is your brand instead of anywhere from 5 to 8 other brands when they're visiting a cigar shop and pushing all these different brands. You kind of hope you're in that mix. But the goal was ultimately to go in-house, which we are now in-house 98%. So yeah, so that was the ultimate goal, just to push Kristoff within the US. And of course, in the 55 plus other countries, we use distributors, and that a lot of manufacturers use.
Yeah, that's the name of the game over there. There's not reps in the international market like there are here, which I think is very unique about the United States, which is really great because you have that personal experience, obviously, with having the privilege of meeting you and other cigar manufacturers, but you also have that personal experience with your rep, which is really great. They don't have that experience over in Europe and everything. I think I asked you this last time. And please correct me if I'm wrong here. Is Germany the next top country for you? I know obviously the U.S. has to be number one, but of those 55 other countries, is Germany the number one, or is it another country where you're able to sell the most cigars?
Yeah, Germany outside of the U.S. is probably our best market. It's amazing market, but it's astonishing to me because I don't manage international sales, but I'm shocked at the number of countries we're in. To go to the factory and recently see pallets going to Japan or Hungary, or pick another country. It's absolutely amazing to see where we're doing business. So, but Germany is probably our next largest, well, the probably number one country out of the U.S. that we're in.
What's the most unique country that you're like in your wildest dreams? You're like, my cigars are being sent where?
We just started shipping to probably a year ago to South Africa. I'm like, okay, that's
Nice.
awesome. So yeah, it's just it's very cool to see the brand grow and expand to different parts of the world, and you know, it's awesome.
That's fantastic. All right, Glenn. Well, we just have one last question here to conclude our night. So I do again really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much for stopping by for another fantastic conversation. And this is, of course, our curveball segment, which is sponsored by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter since the company's inception. Steve Saka's been knocking them out of the park 9 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So 20 years, Glenn, 20 years. So I have a 2-part question as part of the curveball. Would you say that the last 20 years of Kristoff Cigars have been the best 20-year stretch of your life?
Oh, 100%. I mean, working in finance and corporate for 19, 20 years prior to this, my first career, there's no comparison. I've met so many amazing people in this industry. It's fun. It doesn't feel like work. It's a lot of work, but it doesn't feel like work, if that makes sense. And I love it, from end consumers to retailers to um, other manufacturers who I've grown close with. It's it's amazing. It's an absolutely amazing experience, and so I would not trade it for the world.
That's awesome. Um, if you could, so here's the second part of the question. I know it's always funny to ask questions like this because you always think about like, well, my life wouldn't be here if it weren't for those experiences and things like that. But if you could swap this 20-year run for any other 20-year part of your lifetime, where would it do? Would you swap it with your young childhood, your early professional career? Where would you swap it?
Well, I'm gonna introduce faith once again. So my point is God's plan is perfect, right? So I wouldn't change anything. So whether it's my finance career or the cigar industry as a brand owner, I would not change anything. I think his timing is perfect. He's opened the doors that meant to be open and closed the doors that meant to be closed. And so for me, I'm grateful and blessed to be where I'm at today. I wouldn't change anything.
Glenn, as a man of faith, this is something I've actually wanted to ask you for a while too, because and this has always been a part of our conversation. You've always been pretty steadfast in it. I'm a man of faith as well. So what was it? Again, this is me assuming because I've never been a part of that world. Uh, the cigar industry has quite a few individuals that are very religious, based in countries that are very that have a religious background, particularly Christianity and Catholicism, etc. Right? So like there's a place for it. I feel like. Was it difficult to be a part of, especially so prominently, a part of the financial services industry as a person of faith?
Um, I don't think it was necessarily, well, let me rephrase this. I'm going to restate it by saying the opportunities to share faith in the financial services industry didn't lend itself like it does in the cigar industry. But I'll also put a caveat on this. I wasn't as strong on my faith during the financial services industry in my career as I have been in my cigar career. So um, certainly the cigar industry lends more opportunity, but it was also growth of my faith and my walk in Christ during my time in the cigar industry that really opened up those doors.
Awesome. Yeah, it was something that I came to mind one time when we were talking about it. I've always wanted to ask you that. Because I know there are so many industries that are much different than this one that we're a part of. It's so communal. You know, there's you hear about bitterness between some individuals and stuff, but that's so much few and far between. It's very, very, very much a brotherhood, I feel like, and a sisterhood, a very familial industry that lends um to that the ability to walk the walk and everything and keep that faith as strong as you have over the years and everything. So um but Glenn, really thank you so much for being a part of this evening. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for bouncing back after that technical snafu. I appreciate it. And we started the show a little bit late, candidly, folks, because I was having some technical difficulties. So really, really appreciate everyone's patience tonight, and thank you so much for the opportunity, Glenn, to speak with you again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I can't wait to see you here in a couple of weeks.
Bear, thank you so much. Always a pleasure, my friend. And again, looking forward to seeing you in less than 2 weeks, my friend. It's around the corner.
It's around the corner. Well, before we know it. But everyone, thanks to everyone staying up late with us and tuning in for our show tonight. As always, if you're listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts, thankfully to Gran Habano Cigars, who is our audio sponsorship. If you're listening to us via Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you download, subscribe, and you review. Do me a favor, if you are going to leave some review, and if you're going to give me that pitiful 1 star, just leave some feedback and tell me why you didn't like me. That's how I really improve this show. But if you already are a subscriber, do me a favor, hit unsubscribe, but don't forget to hit resubscribe, because that really helps my numbers. That's the only reason Glenn keeps agreeing to coming back. Just kidding. That's not the case. But it does help my numbers. So whatever you can do to help us out here at LS Fumar Takes, we do appreciate it. You can always check out our YouTube channel as well. Hit the red subscribe button on there too. And then if you already have liked or followed the LS Fumar page on Facebook, that's where we announce all of our upcoming shows. We are on the road to 300. This was our 284th take, live from the Alec Bradley Studios of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Bear Duplessis. As always, he's Glen Case, everybody. And guess what? We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Bear.